Today, Anna and I are going to be talking about mental health and actual self-care. Not the self-care that actually ends up being detrimental, just a pop sci farce of actual self-care. We'll be discussing how to kick ourselves out of ruts, making sure we're around healthy people, not just physically. I have trained with Anna 4 days a week, every month for 14 months straight. She is capable, competent, bright. We hope you get value from this conversation. One of the things I had thought to talk to you about was maybe victim status, like the mentality of victimhood, because we've talked a lot about that, and I listened to it in one of your stories as well. You talked about that, the mindset of having felt victimized, having felt some type of way about how you were.
When it comes to, like, eating disorders and
Yeah,
all that, yep.
yeah, and then your situation at school, and then COVID, and that type of stuff. So, on those lines, I thought I would give you some time to expand on what I'd seen in your story, because with the story and stuff like that, it's you have to get in like the main punches and go in on that. But I was really intrigued as to, personally for you, what helped kick you out of that rut, because there were a few things for me, and finding those things for people of how to just get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Was there some specific instance that you could go back to?
There wasn't a specific instance. I would say I kind of just got tired of struggling with what I was struggling with like binge eating. So I had been doing it for about like 7 months, every single day, every single night, and I was just tired of feeling like bloated, lethargic, and insecure with myself because of the binge eating. And ever since it wasn't ever something I wanted to do. Like, I wasn't intentionally, actually some nights I would intentionally like structure my day because I wanted to binge at night. But like, not every day was like, I'm gonna binge tonight, like I want to binge tonight. It was just something I unasked for that was put on me. And I just got to the point where I was tired of it, and I had been like making a what do you call it? Not a standard for myself, but an image for myself on social media that I was bodybuilding prior to binge eating happening. And I wanted to follow through with that. I wanted to get back on it, and for the most part, I was still stuck in the mindset that my body was for other people to look at and to view and to get inspiration from. And I just got to the point where it was mentally affecting my health. Like, when I was in school, a summer after I did start binge eating, I was struggling with depression, right? And I talked about how I was partying a lot and actually just throwing myself at boys because I had no sense of worth. And it got to the point where I was struggling if these boys didn't make a commitment, and I was just so lost in myself. I was just tired of feeling this way, looking that way, and I just wanted to get back into it. And so I did start up with a coach named Alex Bush, very smart man. And there were some times where I was very dishonest with him when it came to like how severe my eating disorder was. But I just wanted a routine for myself. And I was very victim mindset during that portion too. Is like no one knows what I'm struggling with. Like I have this severe disorder and it's affecting my mental health, and people make jokes about their mental health, and I was comparing my mental health to other people's mental health. I'm like, mine's worse. It was really fucked up. Like,
oh man.
And
yeah, I can imagine.
And it really just didn't get better until COVID happened, I will say that. And that was because it forced myself to prioritize things that I wasn't prioritizing. Like basic human needs. And this is actually just something I was thinking about earlier. Because earlier this year, in the summer, I was kind of going through a rough patch, and I was just neglecting basic human needs. And I was definitely in the victim mindset again, like with a more severe case, but I wasn't taking action on things. That's something that I've kind of learned about myself when I start looking deeper, is that I take the victim mindset when I'm actually not, when I'm searching for help from other people, and I'm not doing it for myself. So when COVID happened, I started prioritizing things. Like I actually had a good morning routine, and I would focus only on my studies.
And you had moved back home by that point,
I had
right?
moved back home to my parents. There was no use in staying over there because no one was there. It was very lonely over there, I imagine, right. For those who did stay over there. But it also kind of pulled me away from keeping everything focused on my body. I was still working with my coach during these months. Probably not a very smart financial decision, but I was still working with him. And it kind of pulled me out of the whole body-focused mentality because I wasn't around other people. So no one could really see me. I was still on social media, but no one could really see me, and I wasn't in a real gym where there were mirrors everywhere. So my dad has his own home gym, so that's where I was working out.
Nice.
And it was just purely focused on being active to be active because I was staying home all day. I didn't want to go out to the grocery stores or shopping and all that. I wasn't submitting to that bullshit. So.
And no chance to go party.
No.
Right.
No, so I was going on walks every day. I was focusing on my studies, just fueling myself with good foods, and I started to really brighten up by the time summer hit. I was like talking to more people, like I was just more happy, my presence, and it kind of just continued that way. When I went back to school the next semester, I did partake in like drinking and stuff for my like 21st birthday and all that, but it was really sickening. Like, by the time November hit, I was like, oh, God, I am done. And I wasn't falling back into more, like, depression or anything, but it was just, I'm done. And I wanted to set a goal for myself. So I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm in a good spot now that I want to pursue this whole competition, bodybuilding competition that I started to do but didn't finish. And so I did, and after that, as everyone knows with bodybuilders, like, it's hard to reverse. It's hard to reverse what you just did. So putting more body fat on, eating more, and getting stronger and building muscle. So
force yourself to eat.
Yeah, that part was pretty rough. Definitely kind of fell back into binge eating and all that, and it just wasn't good. I was still kind of isolating myself from people, but I felt like I got to a point where I was good mentally with all of it, but I did hit some ups and downs when stress was on set, and I would start binge eating again. And sometimes I would let my loved ones feel the effects of that. And that's not something that I'm proud of, and that's something that I repeatedly would apologize to people for, because it's not, they don't deserve that. Like,
Right.
they didn't put this onto you. But at the same time, I was like struggling because they wouldn't try to be sympathetic with it. They would just be like, well, just don't.
Right.
Like, just serve yourself
Suck it up.
like a small portion of food and put the food away and eat it.
It's right. It's like when people tell me when I stutter, they're like, just slow down.
Bitch.
I would if I could. I'm like, do you think I'm doing this on purpose?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, the more that I've learned about binge eating through my own psychologist, is it has a whole lot to do with your subconscious brain
Yeah.
and the patterns that you've let it develop in your head. And it's very hard to say, because I have said this before, and when people would say it to me, I would feel very offended when they say that you have complete control over your actions. You do. You very much do. It's very, like, with binge eating. It's an addiction. The same
Right.
patterns as addictions with drugs and all that.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's not really the substances that we get addicted to. It's the emotions we get from the hormone dumps.
The dopamine.
From the dopamine, from the oxytocin. Well, that's one of the reasons why we can get addicted to biting our nails. Mm-hmm. It's not like we're addicted to the extra collagen or something we get.
Yeah.
It's
filling a void.
Right. And I know that I still eat a lot. I don't have necessarily a problem with binging, but the thing is, there are just some things that I really enjoy. Oreo cookies, I really enjoy. So, you know what I don't do? I don't buy Oreo cookies. Mm-hmm. But if I'm at my friend's house and we just had a lot of good meat, steak, chicken, turkey, and there's a box of Oreos, that's getting devoured. So it's just, don't let me know about it. And growing up, one of the things was always clearing my plate, and that's one of those things where I have to remind myself my eyes are bigger than my stomach, where it's like, okay, I don't need that much. And it's one of those conscious things where it's not any sort of addiction. I'm not putting it on a binge eating level like that. It's just I was so accustomed to being a kid, and when there was food, you ate. Mm-hmm. And you ate as much as you could and grow big and strong like Bull. That's what we were always told as kids. Mm-hmm. Eat all your food and you'll get big and strong like Bull. And as a boy, that's of course what I always wanted to be, especially being the youngest. I wanted to be big like my brothers. Mm-hmm. And it's different, so I can kind of relate to some of the urges there, as I think a lot of people can when it comes to things such as food or attention from other people and validation and acceptance. But having it at that point of where it's beyond control, I can just relate to that with other impulses I've had, like chewing my nails, stuttering, that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. Of where I can only imagine what that would be like when applied to food, but I know the process. I know the sensations just when applied to some other actions.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that there are many girls out there that struggle with binge eating. And they do like to keep it to themselves because it is embarrassing. Mm-hmm. I can relate. It's very embarrassing, especially if you're, especially if it's stress related and you feel like you have absolutely no control over it. When I was in like different times where it was really deep and dark, like it had complete control over me. It would, like I said, it would affect my mood. It would affect my energy that I would give to other people. And obviously, the biggest one, the energy that I would give to myself and how disgustingly mean and torturous I was to myself. And that would set me up for like self-sabotaging tendencies and put me in the place of the victim mindset again. And it was kind of just like a cycle. And at that point, I just wasn't happy with where I was with my body in general. And just putting it on to other people was not the answer whatsoever. What changed that was diving into things about myself that I didn't know. And I feel like even just recently, like I would go through phases where I was good, and then it would come back. And just recently has diving into things within myself. I believe a lot of it has to do with my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And like any sort of restrictions that were put on my childhood and like added stress and a lot of eating patterns as like a kid too. I think I talked about this last time, how my brothers and I would have a competition as to how many Taco Bell tacos that we could eat. Unintentional
right.
binge eating right there.
Right. Well, we did that stuff as kids too, you know. I have a brother who he would brag about drinking a gallon of milk a day. And it's just like,
Is he lactose intolerant?
Nope. Thank goodness we had to share a room with him. I had to share a bunk bed with that boy. But well, when it comes to those things that kick us out of those ruts, it's really unfortunate that a lot of the times it comes down to a come to Jesus moment. Mm-hmm. Of maybe not necessarily life or death, but I've been fortunate in that I'm not smart enough, good looking enough, charming enough, capable enough to keep going when I hit a low point. Because I have friends, not friends now, but I know people where they're so good looking, they're so capable, so intelligent, that rock bottom is really far below my rock bottom. And they'll like still just keep dragging their bloody stumps across broken glass and feel like they're okay because they can keep going and still keep getting by. And one of them, you know, she's 35 now. Her boyfriend just OD'd a few months ago on fentanyl, which she probably gave him. Mm-hmm. But she's still functioning. She hasn't hit rock bottom yet. And it's so sad to see how she's never hit a point of rock bottom where she can like start building up again, start doing something, and instead she hasn't hit that point where she's run all the people out of her life. I mean, her sister still loves her, but she has her own issues. Her mom developed a pill problem in her 50s, and she's still very attractive and charming, so she still gets a lot of attention from men.
Yeah. So she's still in that whole like dark energy space.
Yeah.
She just hasn't seen something that's really gonna smack her in the face.
Yeah. And the thing is with her too, I think, is that, and I'm not trying to beat up on her. She was such a good friend of mine for so long. It's just at some point you can't have a rattler in your house, like, and I think a lot of it comes from shame and guilt. So the smacks upside the heads are not like, oh crap, where am I? Oh, it got this far. Let me make a change. She gets slapped across the face, and she's like, I deserve that because of my guilt and shame. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to help. It seems like the only thing I could do was completely remove myself to show how messed up it had gotten. But most of her friends don't, because a lot of her friends are just like her. And it's hard seeing that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I believe they have to have something happen to them where it actually affects them. You know, where they have a realization where, oh, these things that I'm doing to myself are leading me down the wrong path. Like, she can have things happen to her family or in her friends and stuff, and it's not really actually affecting her as the individual. It might be affecting her emotionally, but it's not affecting her health and her success, really. So, unfortunately, I feel like for a lot of people, it has to happen to them for them to be turned around, or for them to actually see something amazing happening in another person's life where they can take a look at what they're doing versus what they're doing and be like, I want to do that.
Right. And, well, the thing is, though, I have a friend where we grew up together. We were friends, and he sees that in my life, and it just makes him resentful. Because we grew up so much alike, but for him, that just makes him more bitter and resentful. And at some point, it's just like, I would like to know how to help, what I could do, what opportunities or situations could I instigate, create that would help him. But in some ways, kind of my philosophy is like Jim Rohn's, where it's like people who are bitter and resentful are bitter and resentful people. And that's one of the things I enjoyed about being trained by you for 14 months, is that you're not that. And seeing how you were able to think, you were able to listen, then think about things, and go, how would that improve my life? Is this applicable? And seeing the gears work in your head like that was really exciting to me, because you don't run across people like that each day. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because that's not normal. You know that by talking to 100 people, it's rare. And that's one of the fun things about our breakfast, is that the people who come to my breakfast we don't all think the same, but we're all thinking and trying to like work it out, and we'll listen, we'll have a conversation, because we want the truth. We don't want to be right. We want the truth.
Yeah.
We don't care about being perceived as a fit bodybuilder, healthy type, and then we're binge eating at night. We actually want to walk the walk. And I love that you have been able to do that.
Yeah, I think who you're surrounded by has a huge reason on why you develop so quickly, or why you continue to
revert and regress.
And sometimes you can surround yourself with people who you think are the ones that are going to help you. Like how I don't know if I should say this, how I worked in a gym. And when I first started there, I loved the people that I worked with. But your eyes just open up. Not just people that I worked with, but people that are at the gym, you know, talking their shit, and you just see their actions, and it's not something I want to be. Especially with some girls, some guys that come into the gym. A lot of people can see through them. And it has a lot to do with their insecurities. And it may not be, maybe they're not insecure about their body. It just has a whole lot to do with their emotions and how they process things too. And sometimes people just are not nice. And that sucks. And sometimes they don't even realize that. Sometimes they don't even realize that they have these insecurities. But, like, what's got to happen for them to realize, oh, that's something I need to work on? I don't know.
That was one of the things I knew. I had a stepdad when I was a kid who was 6'1", 6'2", jacked guy. And you know why we have the term bad temper? So when something is tempered, like glass or steel, when you temper steel, one of the ways you do it is you fold it back onto itself and beat it down again, and then fold it onto itself, and it tempers it. And iron isn't tempered. It is typically cast, and that's why it cracks. It's brittle. Steel can become spring steel. You can't create spring steel out of iron because it doesn't have that springiness. It's not tempered. And so when we say someone has a bad temper, it means they get very angry very quickly or easily. That's because their character breaks. It cracks. They don't have a good temper. And people who are tempered are people who have experienced a certain amount of austerity, a certain amount of maybe trauma, and through that they develop a stronger character. And the stepdad I had a very bad temper. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it was the early psych books I got into, or having my mother as a contrast to that. But he was the cliche definition of what people would term toxic masculinity. But I never saw that as actually masculine. And we men would actually say a man who cracks like that, oh, he's being a bitch. It doesn't matter if he's strong, big and strong physically. If he can't handle his emotions, if he lashes out, if he cracks under pressure. I mean, if you get angry at an 8-year-old for spilling the milk, like, seriously, how much self-control do you have? And like I said, I'm not sure how or why, but I never equated that to being masculine. What I saw was that having it under voluntary control of being purposeful and intentional was actually what was masculine. So it was so weird because I had that as a role model of what not to be, where, oh, this is weak. And again, I'm not sure how I got that.
You realized that as like an 8-year-old?
Not really consciously then, but as a teen, thinking back to it and then reading these books that I did, and the folk tales and the legends and these histories about strong men, it was having a good temper. You know, kind of like the strong and silent type. Was that I then had those comparisons of what was a weak man and what was a strong man. And a lot of that has to go with mental health. And I know a bunch of this guy's history as to what would have created that. But then again, if he had a different character or purpose in life, different disposition, then he could have had the same exact reaction that I did to it, of where it would have tempered his character, his spirit, and then made him a good man instead of a weak man. So when it comes to the mental health, poor mental health exhibits differently in men than it does in women. And what struck me was when you said, chasing boys. Because I've liked girls since I knew there was a difference. I never once went through that phase of, oh, girls, boo, ew, ick. Never once. Maybe unfortunately, but I absolutely know what it's like seeking validation from the opposite sex. And it's so weird because it has to be different from a girl from the things I've heard. But as a boy, it's so weird because I was very conscious that I was doing it to fill some sort of void. But when I actually got a girl I actually liked and esteemed, and I realized it because I began to make jokes about it, and then I went, oh, like, this is serious,
Mm-hmm.
was, whoa, if she likes me back, there must be something wrong with her. And that's a joke. That was a joke I'd make with them, make with my friends. But I realized it was actually true of where it was like, oh, well, if this great girl actually likes me, she can't be that great. Like, what's wrong with her? And none of it was fulfilling at all. So I would absolutely bat out of my league, but not in the right direction. So that occurred a lot. And then I'd get rejected by those girls too.
Oh.
Because it's 9 out of 10 no matter what.
Yeah.
As a guy, at least. And then when I would get a gal where it's like above my league or in my, how I perceive them, it's like, oh, well, there must be something wrong with her. And typically I would self-sabotage. So I did that too. So both ways, I just ended up feeling empty and annoyed and frustrated, and it wasn't fun.
Mm-hmm.
For a really long time. Just wasn't fun.
Yeah. It adds so much unwanted stress onto you, and to kind of I relate to what you just said. So those guys that I was chasing, I would say a couple of them were extreme. I know I'm pretty. Like, I know that I am beautiful.
All my friends that I've shown your pictures.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's just been
objectively speaking, absolutely.
It's just been recently where I have come to believe it as opposed to just know it.
Mm-hmm.
But
girl, same.
Back then, I was definitely crying and having like rough heartbreak over men that I
wasn't even in relationships with.
Yes. And I cringe at now. And yes, it was trying to fill some sort of void. And recent discovery, I do think it has a lot to do with loneliness and feeling sorry for myself with loneliness. It's kind of just always been that way since I was a little kid, where I was homeschooled. And I had a best friend when I was homeschooled. And
trust me, you can be lonely in public school too.
Yeah. I'll go on to say this. I had a best friend. We were tight until she moved away when I was like 8, and from then until maybe last year was no super close friend at all. Like, no one to share anything with. Well, no one to share embarrassing things or like family
a girlfriend,
problems, all that.
A close girlfriend, right?
Yeah, and so I think I was just trying to fill that void with a man, and a lot of these men were not men yet. They were still in their partying days, and they were emotionally unavailable and all that, and I was rough. Like, I was bawling my eyes out over, like you said, people that I was not in relationships with, and I just mentally was a mess. Is all because I didn't have trust, and I didn't have any sort of belief in myself. And I'm still trying to build that right now, the belief and the trust in myself.
It's an ongoing process, I can assure you.
Yeah. Never again.
Yeah. That's one of the things I've been working through a lot lately, is kind of loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things was being able to talk my way in or out of a lot of situations. Made it so if I didn't want to be lonely, I wasn't. And I realized that wasn't going to be a successful long-term strategy. And you can't fill a cup that's full. And for me, looking for a serious relationship, I did want space holders. And I was absolutely shocked to find out how much of a soothing balm, a distraction it was knowing all these people that I could just call and, you know, to hang out or go on dates. And having stopped that, it really messed with me, where I realized, oh, I'm lonely, and I know what it's like to be in a good long-term relationship, and something besides that just really isn't that fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird because it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I could recall as a young boy recognizing, 13, 14, that a lot of guys get themselves into trouble because even in a relationship, they still have to like prove themselves to themselves that they could. And so if they get the opportunity to do so, sometimes they do some dumb stuff. And I remember thinking as a youngster, I want to do everything I have to do so that when I am in a relationship, or before I get into one, I can do all those things if I want to, but then no longer have like the urge, no longer have something to prove to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when I at last hit that point where I was just like, I'm done, screw it all, like, no, absolutely not. It was so nice to hit that organically, because it wasn't like I joined a church or I met someone and then she changed me or this or that. It came out of me. And one of the things is about how difficult it was for me, especially in the aftermath, really proved to me that I had actually organically and sincerely hit that point of, oh, this is actually where I want to be, where I could, don't want to. And most people can't want to. So they can be in a good situation, but then if they can, then it's like, oh. And I just didn't want to be a victim to myself, to my reptile brain.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's kind of what you got sick of too, with the binge eating and the unhealthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Was no longer wanting to be victimized by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I was my own worst enemy. No one was making me do this but myself. And I have a lot to say on what you just said, but first I'm going to start with like the whole can and can't thing. Especially with a lot of people that have victim mentality. I think everyone at some point has victim mentality. Mm-hmm. And it's really easy to point out when people do. Mm-hmm. Because we do it to ourselves all the time. And if you say that you can't do something, like you don't have time or you don't have the means to do that, when you have such an easy answer right in front of you, you really just don't want to do it.
Right.
And
you don't want it enough.
Yeah. And like pursuing trying to heal my relationship with myself and like how I was abusing food was always something I was trying to pursue. It was never something I just gave up on and was like, I'm just gonna binge eat for the rest of my life.
This is just who I am because of the things I experienced as a kid, and people should just accept that.
Yeah. No, because I didn't want to live like that. Like I wanted to. I think the biggest thing that came to mind once I realized this was like a huge problem of mine, and the deeper I thought into it, was that I do not want my daughter to ever have this. Like binge eating is something I wouldn't rush upon people that I don't really hate anyone. There are people I strongly dislike, but I would not wish it on them. It's not, because it comes with so many things. Mm-hmm. It comes with insecurity within yourself, like your self-worth, depression, like anxiety, and it overall just impacts your health, your stress, which can lead to so many different diseases, stress itself. But yeah, so that was something I always tried to pursue because I knew, one, I didn't want to do this for the rest of my life, 2, all the impacts it could have on myself, and 3, bodybuilding. I was like, I can't bodybuild with an eating disorder because I I know to this day too that bodybuilding is not for other people. Bodybuilding's for me. Like, if social media did not exist, I would still bodybuild. And I think a big part of it is because it's something so unique to me.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone does it. And no one in my family did it. That's why I was always like the odd duck. I've always been the odd duck in my family. Like, with the way that I would do my own thing. I think I was just more strong-headed than the rest of my siblings.
You would know what that's called? It's a thing I came across, and my folks liked it too when I shared it with them. It's called the black wolf of the family.
Not the black sheep?
Yeah, right. Because the black sheep is, reactionary, goes with the wrong herd.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a black wolf where it goes, generational curses. The buck stops with me. I'm going to do my own thing despite what the people closest to me may think, and I'm not going to do it to spite them. I'm going to do it because I have to do it for me. And that's one of the things I love about my own parents, that especially with my mom, she's such a just radical individualist that even if she doesn't agree with what I think or do or say, she can appreciate the fact that I'm doing it because I've thought about what I actually want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So she can just be absolutely disgusted with whatever my beliefs are on a certain subject, but she at least can appreciate that I'm doing what I can to think for myself.
Yeah.
So being that black wolf is where you're doing your own thing because you made a decision to do your own thing, despite every excuse to just go along to get along.
Yeah. And there were so many people, including like members of my family and all that. I think I've had 4 coaches in total. Ever since I started getting into fitness, I've been with the one that I am with for the longest, for good reasons, because he's amazing. Plug.
Nice.
But one of them...
I can drop a link in the description to his gram.
Even one of the coaches told me, actually a couple, maybe bodybuilding isn't for you. And that hurt. Like, really bad, because
Good.
bodybuilding has brought me so much joy and a sense of purpose within what I'm doing in the gym. Not a sense of whole life purpose. Just recently have I like found things actually that I like to do that don't involve bodybuilding whatsoever. And I think that's a huge thing, is when you were talking about kind of just being happy with yourself and being alone before like diving into relationships. I think that can go for anything. Like, you have to be an emotionally stable person to be successful within anything.
Right, you have to have a good temper.
Yeah. And you have to just be happy with who you are before you go into bodybuilding, for an example. Like, I talked about this on my YouTube. You have to be a stable person to be a bodybuilder and to prep and all that. And that's why I have not done that in a long time, because I'm working on being stable and pursuing other things that need my attention before bodybuilding, because you fit into bodybuilding. You don't make bodybuilding fit you.
Right, and that's why we're attracted to people who have nice things, have nice physiques, is because if you have any level of sophistication at all, you know that takes stability, dedication, discipline, healthy mindset, forward-thinking mindset, enthusiasm, passion. Those are all things we find very attractive in both sexes, both for intimate partners and just friends. those are nice people to be around.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is those people are a little bit older too, because they went through shit trying to get there. And that's not to say that there are people with amazing physiques and they're successful, but they're actually like really shitty people.
Right. But I will say there is a difference between seeing a hot, fit, young 23-year-old and a hot, fit 41-year-old mother of 6. That's one does absolutely deserve a little more kudos.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just the reality of the situation. And again, that's attractive to see, where it's like there's commitment there.
Mm-hmm.
There's dedication, enthusiasm, and discipline.
Yeah, I was just thinking that the other day. It's just not to shit talk anyone, like anyone that does this or anyone that works with me that did work with me, but I know of a mom of, I think it's 4. She has like 2 twins, 2 individual kids that like the twins are combined or something. Okay, they're all individual kids.
She has a pair of twins, and then
yes, singles.
Yeah.
She goes to the gym every night. After work, she goes to the gym and works her ass off. And it's just, to me, it's just when people say that they don't have time, it's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. And I mean, in some cases you don't.
Right.
Some cases you don't. And I think it's good if you absolutely don't have time and you're trying to fit in a gym session and that's just going to elevate stress. Not good. But when people say they don't have time, if you were to actually look at their schedule, in most cases, you have time.
Well, it's just like financially, we always have money for things that are important to us.
Yeah.
And we always have time for things that are important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when people make up the excuse that they're too busy to hang out with you, it's no, they're too busy to hang out with you. And
Mm-hmm.
that is just the way it goes. See, people have reasons to do the things they want to do, and they make up excuses for the things they don't want to do.
What do you think about the whole phrase that goes around social media? If he wanted to, he would. How do you feel about it?
Oh, it's absolutely true.
Exactly.
I'm
glad you agree with that.
I talked to a girl some months. Well, the same thing goes with girls. I talked to a friend of mine a few months ago, and she was going on about how she was seeing a guy, and then he made it clear that they weren't going to be exclusive, so she kind of cut him off, but she stayed in touch. She's like, yeah, it's so nice, because we text throughout the day a little bit here and there, and he always texts me good morning and good night, and it's so nice, and he must care about me if he's actually taking the time to do that. And I stared at her just dumbfounded. She's like, what? I was like, are you stupid? She's like, what? I was like, do you know how easy it is to, like, take a selfie and then just tick. Vanessa, Katrine, Jane, Sue, Mary, just tick. Your best friend in there too. Mm-hmm. Just like, hey, beautiful, with a selfie of you in bed. You know how easy that is? It's the lowest effort thing you can do. You can do it on Snapchat, can do it in text, you can do it on
Snapchat. Everyone that has Snapchat needs to delete Snapchat.
Are lying and cheating. Yes. As a rule of thumb. Not all of y'all, but but it was just I was amazed at how she thought that little bit of effort meant he actually liked her. Mm-hmm. And then I've thought back to many situations I've been in where after a couple dates, girls who liked me a lot thought that I was, like, going to propose within a few months. And I was like, what? No, I was raised by my mother. Of course I get the door for you. Mm-hmm. I don't treat you differently or special. This is just how I treat people.
It's just outside of culture that they're used to.
Right, and then I hear stories like what I just described. It's like, oh, girls are so used to so little effort because guys do as people do as little as they have to do to get the results they want, and the bar is so low now to get access to dates, sex, what have you, that yeah, it is as easy as a good morning and a good night text to all 10 of the girls. And it's just and I don't think she believed me. The thing is, I don't think she wanted to believe me. She just enjoyed the attention as little as it was, because she was starved for attention and affection, and it was just too dang bad. But yes, if he wanted to, he would, and if she wanted to, she would, because girls are on their phones 24/7, and if she's not responding to you within the hours, because she doesn't want to.
Yeah,
That's how it is. And again, that's not good for anybody's mental health.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, there will be times where if the person's really special to me, I will respond. But like, there will be times with people like maybe I'm acquaintances with, or you know, like someone asks me a question out of nowhere, I will forget to respond until the next day.
Right.
But if the person's really special to me, I have this mental note in the back of my head that they texted me. You need to go text them.
And your thing when you think about a thing to text them too, like, oh, a meme or this or that, you're in that state. And that's a thing, though, just because I grew up when we still used corded phones as a norm. And now people think that just because there is access to me 24/7, that they have access to me 24/7, and that's a no. Clients, I don't get, if they call me on a weekend or text me on a weekend, I don't get back to them until Monday, unless I'm actually seeing them on Monday and there's a change. Things like, I may make an exception, but if they just want to get a hold of me to book or this or that, no, you can wait until Monday. It's not that urgent. I'm glad you sent me a text while you were thinking about me, but it can wait. And the same thing is with a lot of other people, is where I'm having dinner with my parents. You don't need to get a hold of me. If you just got into a car crash, you still don't need to get a hold of me. It is like that, and I don't put that expectation on people, and I do not allow it to have power over me, that just because there's access to me now because of my phone does not mean you have access to me. My time is my time, and you getting access to that time is a privilege, not something to be taken for granted.
I think people don't understand your boundaries, and they don't want to understand your boundaries in some cases.
They don't care. Most people don't care. Well, you know, like, that's the thing where it's like, the bad news is most people don't care. The good news is most people don't care.
Kind of going along this line of how a lot of people are really just so invested in themselves. Not invested, I shouldn't say that. That has a good connotation to it, but more like they're all about themselves. That's all I think about, is that you run on their schedule.
Right. They're the main character in their story, which they should be, but when it comes to self-centered navel-gazing, then it's like, okay, well, you're just ignoring the other people in your life at that point.
I don't have any patience for entitled people. And entitled people are everywhere. And yes, that is something that I'm trying to work on. But, I mean, like, my reaction to them.
Right. That's just the way they are. That's just how some folks are. And You just have to recognize it and then go, oh, that's what's going on, and then you can relieve yourself of any sense of obligation.
Yeah, and I think those types of people, whether it be in the workplace, like in the gym and all that, I think people that don't know how to stand up to them are the people that are always like angry as well because of that. And
because
so
they feel abused.
It's just like everyone has such a negative influence on each other. And I think a big one, I can relate it to the gym, is when people are just so negative energy in the gym sometimes. Like if nothing goes their way and they ruin everyone else's time there, that makes me so mad.
Because misery loves company. But the thing is, I'm so grateful that it works in both ways, because there are a lot of people where they love to host and share food and cook and bake and do all that stuff, where we love doing stuff like that. And then there are people who love to share their crack cocaine, I mean. There are those people too, because it's just how people are. Oh, stop it. How people are is what they attract more of into their lives. And becoming a more stable, peaceful, better tempered, healthier, enthusiastic, happy person attracts those kinds of people. And what's nice is that once it goes past a certain point, it actively deters people who are not like that, because it creates such a friction with the dissonance in the relationship that they just actually don't want to be around you. People who are not like that, who are so much the opposite of that, once it hits a certain point, there's a point of no return where they will self-select out, because your mere presence is irritating, because everything you do, say, from your affect to your tone of voice to the things you talk about, puts in stark contrast, is just disagreeing with them. And it's hard to be around someone who's always contrary.
I think this has a relation to the victim mentality again. So the more you say you can't do something, and the more negative you are to yourself, the more you're going to draw negativity into your life. You're quite literally manifesting it. Like if someone tells me, oh, I can't do that, or oh, I can't get this many sessions in, or oh, I can't make that decision, you're literally telling yourself you can't. You're manifesting it.
From your mouth to God's ears?
Yeah. Like, of course you're not going to be able to do that, because you're telling yourself you can't, and so you're making her believe that, so you're not even going to try. That people like that, they're the ones that aren't going to make any progress. And they're just drawing in more people like that to themselves, and they're all going to live a happy, negative life together.
And they can all do that, as they should, and it'll be away from us.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I've very much... Sometimes I feel bad if I don't include people like that in my life, because at once they were.
Right.
Right? But I'm just over that.
Right. Well, you can't help someone who won't help themselves.
Yeah. If I hear, oh, so-and-so's mad again, I'm just like...
Oh, of course they are.
Okay. They can stay away. Like, no, I'm not involving myself in that type of negativity anymore, because everything that I tell my clients not to do, everything that I try to stay away from now, is because I was either becoming that or I was that. And I don't want that anymore. And I want that for other people, and I don't want that for myself. And a lot of it has to do with negativity and speaking manifestations into your life. Like when it came to my binge eating, I would tell myself, oh, I binge eat. like I'm a binge eater. I was quite literally saying that I was that, so I kept becoming that. And same thing goes with my body image. Like, oh, I would make a comment about my legs and stuff like that. When a client says anything sort of negative like that, like, oh, now we have to get rid of this back fat, I'm like, either one, I call them out on it because it makes me very mad, or two, I just don't say anything. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, that's next. Like, one, I can't pinpoint body fat. Two, I'm not encouraging that.
Right. I mean, at some point, what you accept is what you support in a lot of ways. It's where in yourself or in those close to you and those who are paying you to help them help themselves. Of where and it's so gross when people say, oh, well, this is just how I am, why can't you love me for how I am? It's because I know you have a higher vision of yourself for yourself, and that's what I'm here to support as your friend. Is not encourage you to stay where you are, but support you in striving towards that higher vision you have of yourself. That's what a friend is for. A friend is there to love you and accept you for who you are and encourage you towards your higher vision of yourself, not love you and accept you and try to keep you where you are. That's not a friend.
Yep. I've let a lot of those go.
Good.
Not because of those reasons, but because people that are like that will also show other not so friend qualities. And
yep.
I think the best thing that I've done recently is just let people, not actually physically let them go, telling them, oh, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. It's just not talking to them.
And quite often they
don't even notice it.
You then realize that you were the one who maintained that. You just have to bless them and wish them the best and let them go. Yeah. And it's difficult to do, but it's really the best for both of you.
Because a lot of those people are just they are focused on themselves and what other people can do for them. Whether they be just people that they talk to about their problems or gossip about other people too. I am not living that life anymore. I can't stand gossip anymore. Even though we just gossiped about that one girl.
Well, we did not name names, and we did it to serve a higher goal, not just to.
It's just we're just keeping ourselves updated on, has she gotten better? That's what it is.
And we're just proving to ourselves that we were right all along because she has it. All right. Well, listen, this was a lot of fun. It was a really good conversation. Thank you for being as open as you were. And I was glad that I could share with you two and get some different perspectives on things. So I appreciate it a lot. And I look forward to the next time we get a chance to do
Me too.
all
I'm
this.
excited to go deeper onto topics too.
Me too. Well, this is fun. Great. Well, thanks so much, Miss Anna.
Thank you, Micah.
We'll see you in the next one. Thank you.